under your entire bachelor's course under your agriculture economics. This is very important, and this is very easy also. And this is this is elasticity of supply was not done in section C. Okay, okay, I will do that next day. Okay, Srishti. Okay, so I will make the section C to come in the next lecture. I will just let you know. I will let know the time to CR, and then she will inform to the group C that okay, and then I will do the elasticity of supply there. But for today, we are doing our producer surplus and the consumer surplus. As I told you that this is very important, and this is very easy also. Okay, so before moving towards the consumer surplus and the producer surplus, we obviously need to understand what are they in fact. Okay, so what is the meaning of consumer surplus and what is the meaning of producer surplus? That is the basic thing that we need to understand. But before understanding the basic concepts about the producer surplus and the consumer surplus, I want you to understand the concept of market equilibrium first. Because the entire concept of your producer surplus and the concept of your consumer surplus is based on the concept of market equilibrium. Okay, so market equilibrium is just like the foundation of your producer surplus and the consumer surplus. So if that is the foundation of the consumer surplus and the producer surplus, then we should obviously move on with the foundation first. Having said that, I will take your attention towards the market equilibrium for first 10 minutes, and then only I will drive your attention towards the consumer surplus and the producer surplus. This is how I am planning to do this producer surplus and the consumer surplus topic. Okay, then only I will be coming up with the definitions. First, let me come up with the explanations on market equilibrium. Okay, and see, what are we going to study on this topic? The outline is market equilibrium concept. Obviously, we will be looking into the market equilibrium concept because this is the foundation of your producer surplus and the consumer surplus. And we all know that market equilibrium is the state of condition when when the demand and supply of the commodity in that particular market is equal. Okay, so market equilibrium is the point where your demand and supply are always equal. There is no doubt that okay, market equilibrium means to the condition that D is equal to S, because we have been hearing or we have been learning about this market equilibrium since our first semester. Okay, we will again do the repetition here, and then only I will take your attention towards the consumer surplus concept, and we will study the consumer surplus concept from two parts. The first part is what is the consumer surplus when our market is in equilibrium, and we will see when market is not in equilibrium, what happens to the consumer surplus, or what will be the consumer surplus when market is not in equilibrium. So if I am talking that okay, if I'm saying that market is not in equilibrium, you have to quickly have in your mind that I am stating the condition that at that particular market your demand and supply are not equal. This is market in equilibrium. Okay, and the third topic that we will be covering is the producer surplus, and we will also see from the perspective of the market equilibrium again what is producer surplus when market is in equilibrium, and we will again see what is producer surplus when market is not in equilibrium. And the fourth one topic, we will also do the numerical exercises here. Okay, we will do the numerical exercises for the consumer surplus and the producer surplus here, and we will try to figure out what is dead weight loss. This is also a completely new term for you. We will see and we will try to crack down the meaning of dead weight loss here. So these are the outlines that we are going to study, we are going to do, and we are going to crack down in our producer surplus and the consumer surplus. And since this is only I think it's about only half an hour that I need to spend for this producer surplus and consumer surplus according to the course breakdown. But I will be spending this for today and tomorrow because this is very important topic, and this is like a very good foundations for your master's degree, also for your for your higher studies. So I will be taking this two lecture for this producer and consumer surplus because this is very important. Okay, having said that, now we know that okay, well now someone might be wondering what is that producer surplus and consumer surplus under what topic that we are going to be studying. So basically this consumer surplus and the producer surplus concept is the economic terms. It's economic terms, and it is just trying to define your market wellness. Okay, I will just explain in a minute, and then I will just give a chance to ask you. Okay, don't just get worried. Okay, okay, I have to ask the questions. Okay, he's moving on and moving on. Okay, I will give you some time to ask after I'm done. Okay, just write down your questions if you have in your notebook, and then ask when I'm giving you to ask. Okay, and now, and how can we study, or how can we define the fairness or the wellness of any market? So we can define, or we can find out the wellness of the market by studying the relationship between the consumer and producers, because they are the important actors in the any market. So they are the one who are to produce, and they are the one who are to consume. So if they are the one to produce and they are the one to consume, then they are obviously going to be the very important actors in your market. So understanding or defining our market or any market wellness will be done by studying the relationship between consumers and producers, and this relationship will be studied under the concept of producer surplus and the consumer's surplus. This is what our topic is all about. As I told you that, okay, consumer surplus and producer surplus concept is entirely based on the market equilibrium. So I will be going towards the market equilibrium. But we also know that the concept of market equilibrium is entirely based on the concept of demand and concept of supply. We will see the supply curve and we will see the demand curve here in very quickly, okay? Then I will move towards the market equilibrium. Now see here, the graph. We know that demand is negatively sloped. It means that there is the inverse relationship between the price and quantity. So the first graph that you are looking or you are able to see in your left hand side is the graph of your demand curve, that is denoted by D. Okay, it means that when price is increased, quantity is decreased, and vice versa. This is what we already studied in our law of demand topic. Okay, and the second one is like, okay, the second topic to your, the second graph in your right hand side is showing the graph of your supply curve. Supply curve is positively sloped. We know that the meaning of positively sloped means there is the direct relationship between the two parameters, and the two parameters here shown to you, they are price and the quantity. So it's like, okay, in supply curve, price is directly proportional to the quantity. It means that when the price of any commodity is increased, the supply quantity supplied of the commodity is increased, and vice versa. That is what supply curve is saying to you. And the demand curve is saying that, okay, when price is increased, the quantity of demand of any commodity will be decreased, and vice versa. This is what the concept of law of demand and law of supply was stating to us, and I have already done that topic in your lecture also. This is just like a quick repetitions, because this is the foundation for market equilibrium. So now we are able to understand demand curve and supply curve. Now, what is market equilibrium? So market equilibrium is the condition or the state where demand and supply of the commodity are exactly equal. It is like, okay, it is like, see my finger, okay, I think I'm able, my videos is on to you. Okay, see here, this is your supply curve, this is the demand curve, okay, and the point where demand and supply is meeting, the meeting point of the demand and supply curve is your equilibrium point, and that equilibrium point is giving you the equilibrium price, and that equilibrium point is giving you the equilibrium quantity, and that graph in overall is known as the market equilibrium. That is what market equilibrium is all about. Now let me talk few things about the market equilibrium. Now we understood that, okay, in any market, if that market is in the state of equilibrium, okay, then demand and supply are always equal. So the first equation is saying that, okay, market equilibrium, that equilibrium can also be simply called as the economic equilibrium. Whatever you say, that is referring to the condition that demand and supply are exactly equal. Okay, so now in equilibrium condition, there will be no any shortages and there will be no any surplus of the product in that market. That is true, because when the demand of the commodity, let's say demand of the strawberries in the market is 1,000 kilo, and if the demand from the consumer of the strawberry is 1,000 kilo, and if the supply from the producer is also exactly 1,000 kilo, then there will be no any problem of the shortage, and there will be no any problem of the surplus. This is the market rule. Okay, so and in any market, if that market is to be in the balanced state, then that in that market the demand and supply should always have to be equal. Then only we say that that market is the balanced market. Okay, so what is happening when the market is not in the state of balance? So when there is no balance, it means that demand is not equal to supply. Sometimes it can happen that, okay, demand is more than supply, okay, Consumer is willing to have, okay, you are willing to have 100 kilos of strawberries in your house, but but the supplier is only able to supply 10 kilos. It means that 90 is the deficit in that market. That is the shortage. We say that, okay, there is the huge shortage of petroleum product in the market. What is that? That shortage is referring to you that, okay, more is the amount that the consumer is willing to have. Consumer is wanting more and more, but the market is not able to supply that much amount of commodity that consumer is actually willing to have. Then there is shortage. We say that, okay, gas the shortage voice. We say that, okay, petrol the shortage voice. What is that? Consumer is wanting more, but supplier is not able to supply more. That is shortage, okay? And that happens when your demand is greater than your supply. See, in the third point, when D is greater than your supply, then there is the existence of shortage of the product in the market. So now what happens, okay, when there is more supply, okay, supplier is supplying more and more in the market, but demand is less. What happens? Obviously, that is the condition of surplus. It means that more is available in that market. Okay, let's say a strawberry farmer is supplying 1,000 kilo, is able to supply 1,000 kilo of strawberry in the market, but the demand from the consumer is only 100 kilo. Okay, 100 kilo is the amount of commodity what the consumer is actually looking for, or they want to consume, but supplier is supplying 1,000 kilo. So the deficit, sorry, the excess there is like, excess is the surplus. The surplus is now 1,000 minus 100 is going to be your 900, and that 900 is your surplus. So that surplus is the excess amount of the strawberries in that particular market, and that is not the balanced market. Okay, so in order to call any market a balanced market, there should be the supply and demand exactly equal. This is all about the shortage and surplus, and no shortage and no surplus concept from the theoretical point of view. Now let me come up the same explanations with the graphical illustrations. Okay. Now let me remove this. Okay, so you see here, what is happening? This is your demand curve and this is your supply curve, and the point that this orange arrow is showing to you is saying that that is equilibrium, okay? Because demand is equal to supply, because they have intersected each other. At that time, S is equal to D, shown to you. And now, if you want to know, okay, what is the equilibrium price when the market is in equilibrium? So draw the perpendicular line towards your price axis. Price axis is given to you in your y-axis, and your quantity is mentioned in your x-axis. This is the horizontal axis, and this is your price axis. Okay, follow my cursor also. From the equilibrium point, if you draw the perpendicular line towards the price axis, then what is happening? You will get some point. Okay, that some in this is actually drawn in the graph paper. Okay, so you might be wondering what is that point. Okay, if I am saying that, okay, if that is the point of 40, then how is that 40 coming to you? This might be wondering someone. This is actually needs to be done in the graph paper. So this is not done here in the graph paper. So we are just assuming that, okay, this price be, let us that price be 50 rupees. Now we will see that, okay, when the price of the commodity in the market is 50 rupees, at that time the demand and supply are exactly equal. So at that time, what is the demand and supply quantity? Then if you want to know the quantity amount, then draw the perpendicular line towards the horizontal axis. Now follow my cursor, okay? And when you just start your this line at 100 in the graph paper, then that, 100 is going to be your quantity. So now what we can say, 100 is the quantity demanded and quantity supplied in that market at the price 50 rupees. So at that time the market is in completely balanced state. That is market equilibrium. Okay, this is all about the market equilibrium. Now if we want to see that, okay, when market is not in equilibrium, then what happens? Now let's take any point above your equilibrium price. Follow my cursor, okay? Follow my mouse, follow my cursor here. Now take any point above your equilibrium price. Now you draw one line that is just touching your demand curve and touching your supply curve. Now demand, from when your price is above your equilibrium price, then what is happening? Your supply is more than that of the demand. When supply is more than that of the demand, then obviously there will be more commodities available in the market. More commodities available in the market means that is the concept of the surplus. बढी भयो मार्केटमा चाहिँ फाल्लाफाल भयो commodity, that is surplus. Okay, and if you want to know what is the exact amount of the quantity, then quantity supply. Now you draw the perpendicular line from the supply curve towards your quantity axis, and then again draw the line that touches the demand curve towards your quantity axis. Now see what in what values that those lines are touching. If this is touching at 70 here, and if this is 30, then 70 is the supply, but only demand that market is looking for is 30. This is what the value can be identified. This is surplus. Now, similarly, if surplus is there, then obviously there should be the shortages as well. So when is shortages happening? Shortages is happening when the price of the commodity is set below the equilibrium price. It means that when the market is when the commodity is available in the cheaper price, okay, if the equilibrium price was 50 rupees, okay, and then if the equilibrium price is 50, and then if you are getting that same commodity in 30 rupees, then what is happening? Obviously more consumer will buy that more product. Now what is happening there? Okay, what happens now? Demand from the consumer will be more because they are getting that commodity in cheaper amount. So if I was only consuming 1 kilo of strawberry yesterday when price was 50, now if it is coming down to 30, then what would I do? I would go for 2 or 3 kilos of strawberry. So now if I am demanding more, obviously other consumers will also demand more and more. So when the entire market will demand more, then obviously the entire market demand will be more. But what is happening? When the price is lower than the equilibrium prices, now the supplier will not supply. Why? Because initially they were getting at the 50 rupees per kilo, now they are getting 30 rupees per kilo. Then why would that supplier supply that commodity? If that commodity is perishable in goods, then they will supply whatever the price in the market is. Okay, that is, we have already done that. So if that commodity is not perishable in nature, then why would that any supplier supply that commodity, or why would any producer go for the production of that commodity, specific commodity? Now they would say that, okay, म त गर्दिन, पहिला यति पाइरहेको थियो, अहिले त घाटा कसले खाइरहन्छ, सस्तोमा कसले दिन्छ, म गर्दिन. यदि someone is saying that, okay, म गर्दिन, then obviously there is the cut off in your supply amount. When there is a cut off of the cut off in the supply amount in the market, obviously more demand and less supply will lead you to the condition of the shortages in the market. That is shortages. पाउँदै पाउँदैन सामान. That is what this graph is illustrating to you. And whatever you say, okay, बजारमा यो किन्न गयो, अहिले अक्सिमिटर किन्न गयो, okay, कोरोनाको केसमा अक्सिमिटर किन्न गयो, अक्सिमिटर पाउँदैन. Why? Everyone are demanding that oximeter. तर supplier अझ short run मा चाहिँ फेरि के हुन्छ, supplierले चाहिँ you can supply more. Okay, अब यदि चाहिँ फेरि अब के हुने भयो त फेरि अब चाहिँ मासको चाहिँ अहिले चाहिँ के भएको छ, मान्छेले चाहिँ डिमान्डिङ मोर एन्ड मोर. ओके, डिमान्ड इज मोर देन द्याट अफ द सप्लाई भयो भने चाहिँ के हुन्छ, तिमीहरूको सर्टेज हुन्छ. तर अहिले हाम्रो कन्डिसन के छ त, सबैले मास्क पाइरहेछ, इजिली पाइरहेछ, पहिला जस्तो सर्टेजेस छैन. अहिले चाहिँ कहाँ छौँ हामी मास्कको कन्डिसनमा चाहिँ, वी आर एट दिस पोइन्ट, वी आर एट द इक्विलिब्रियम पोइन्ट. ओके, दिस इज एस इज इक्वालिटी. सप्लायरले पनि हामीले चाहेको जति सप्लाई गर्न सकिरहेको छ मार्केटमा. दिस इज वाट आवर concept about the market equilibrium is all about. Anything up to here? Any questions so far? Both of the sections, right? If not, just okay. Okay. YR Joshi? No, sir. Okay. Okay. I think this your silence is indicating that, okay, you are just grabbing the content that I am delivering to you. That is a very good thing. Okay, since we are in the virtual medium, so it will be a little bit difficult. That's obvious that, okay, it will be difficult for us also, and it will be difficult for you also. So even if we are having the difficulties, we will try to overcome those difficulties and then try to understand as far as possible. Okay, just let me know. You can just write me message also. Okay, done with this concept. Now let us move towards the concept of the consumer surplus. Now what is consumer surplus here? Let us see the concept of the consumer surplus. Okay, sorry. Okay, can anybody say what is consumer surplus, or do you have any prior knowledge on that? Anybody? Okay, don't worry at all. Okay, now I told you that, okay, consumer surplus and the producer surplus concept is entirely based on this market equilibrium. We will again draw the same graph. Here, the same graph, market equilibrium graph is drawn here. Okay, D is given to you and S is given to you, and this arrow is again showing S is equal to D. This is our equilibrium point. Follow my cursor. Okay, this is our equilibrium price and this is our equilibrium quantity. That's okay. Now we are coming into the next topic, consumer service. What is that? We know that consumer is like the one who makes the demand of the commodity. Okay, and when we were looking into the demand definition of demand, we were talking that okay, demand is not just like having the demand of 1,000 kilos. This is not simply the demand. Demand is like you need to have the willingness to buy and the willingness to pay for that also, and you should be able to afford that amount also, and then you should be having, you should be able to afford that commodity in the prevailing price of that commodity in the market. To 20 रुपियाँ केजी चाहिँ बजारमा तरकारीको भाउ हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ तिमीहरूले चाहिँ किन्नको लागि इन्ट्रेस्टेड र चाहिँ तिर्नको लागि चाहिँ सक्षम भएको कन्डिसन नै द्याट इज योर डिमान्ड. वी टक्ड अबाउट द डिमान्ड अलरेडी. ओके, आई एम नट गोइङ देयर अगेन. So now consumer surplus is basically like, you are interested to pay, just say mano, if you are interested to pay 1,000 rupees for a kilo of strawberry in the market, but when you go to the market and then you pay only 800. Okay, I was interested, I was ready to pay, I was willing to pay 1,000 rupees per kilo for strawberries. Now I do have to pay only 800 rupees for that strawberries in the market. So what is happening there? I was interested to buy, I was interested to pay more, but I'm only paying less. It means that there will be the gain to the consumer. Okay? मानौ आफैले आफैले एक्जाम्पल राखौँ, चिनी किन्नको लागि 100 रुपियाँ किलोमा म किन्छु भनेर म त 100 पर्छ भनेर 100 किलो लिएर गएको थिएँ, मार्केटमा चाहिँ 80 मा पाइयो त चिनी त. Okay, so you are not going to pay 100 rupees for that sugar. You are only paying 80 rupees, because even if your willingness to pay was 100, you are going to pay only 80 rupees. 80 मात्रै तिरेर आउँछ, कसैले तिर्दैन 100 रुपियाँ. Now, 20 रुपियाँ पनि फिर्ता लिएर आउँछ. That 20 rupees फिर्ता that you are getting from that shopkeeper is your consumer gain. That is more or less like a consumer surplus. Okay, and in short you can say, okay, willingness to pay, desiredness. Okay, 1,000 rupees was the desiredness to pay for a kilo of strawberries and I only paid 800. So 1,000 minus 800 is your 200. That 200 is your consumer gain. So now which area is the consumer surplus then? Now we know that, okay, this is the equilibrium condition, and then now just have in your mind that, okay, consumer surplus को बारेमा म एकछिनमा फेरि डिटेलमा अझै आउँछु. Just put in your mind that, okay, the area above your equilibrium price, follow, see here, this arrow, upward arrow is saying that, okay, यो लाइन भन्दा माथिको एरिया र यो डिमान्ड कर्भ भन्दा तलको एरिया. कहिलेकाहीँ चाहिँ फेरि तिमीहरूको डिमान्ड कर्भ चाहिँ माथिसम्म टच गरेको हुन सक्ने कन्डिसन आउँछ है. It is possible that, okay, supply can start from origin and demand can start from, touching that vertical axis also. This is possible. अब त्यस्तो कन्डिसनमा चाहिँ what is happening when demand is starting from this, मेरो कर्सर हेर्ने यो लाइनबाट चाहिँ टच गरेर स्टार्ट भएको छ भने at that time your right angle triangle is formed there. Right angle triangle बन्यो. You know that what is the properties of the right angle triangle? Okay, you know what is the properties. Okay, now we are not going to do here mathematics here. We will do the mathematics, but we are not going to recall, we are not going to do the detailed explanation of those properties. But quickly the also. अब चाहिँ here say we are now going to get our right angle triangle if our demand curve was starting from this point. तर हाम्रो अहिले चाहिँ कहाँ राइट एंगल ट्रायंगल बनिरहेछ भनेर कसैले क्वेशनमा माइन्डमा क्वेशन आइरहेको होला. यहाँ अहिले बनिरहेको छैन, यो मेरो ग्राफमा अहिले राइट एंगल ट्रायंगल बनिरहेको छैन. Now it can be possible that your demand curve be starting from this line. So at that time you have the possibility to get your triangle there, and this entire area of this triangle is going to be your surplus, your consumer surplus. And that area can be defined as the area above the equilibrium line and below the demand curve is your consumer surplus. And now question might be coming in your mind, okay, area of triangle, how can we calculate the area of triangle? Now recalling the mathematics knowledge, the area of the triangle can be identified by the formula half base into height. 1 by 2 multiplied by base into height. And now I'm not going to say you, okay, which one is the base and which one is the perpendicular and which one is the hypotenuse. You have to understand yourself. And now you have to understand which one is your height of that triangle and which one is the base of that triangle. Base means जुन चाहिँ भुइँमा रेस्ट गरेको छ. To understand simply, त्यो triangle चाहिँ भुइँमा आर्स लाएर चाहिँ कुन चाहिँ लाइनले आर्स लागेको छ, that line is your base. And height is like, the total entire height of your triangle is going to be your height. And using the formula of half base into height, we can calculate the area of this triangle by 1 by 2 multiplied by base into height. This is your consumer surplus. Okay, please someone buzz me, okay, if that is alright or not. Okay, नत्र म एक्लै बोलिरहेको छु कि जस्तो लाग्छ है. Okay, thank you, Preeti. Okay, now let me take you to the next curve again. Now, let us take now any point at demand curve here. Let us say that demand curve, any point at demand curve be x. मानौ कुनै point हामीले demand curve मा लियौं. So at the time when you draw the perpendicular line towards the vertical axis, then your equilibrium price will not be P now. Now your price will be P dash. It is higher than that of the P. Okay? पहिला 50 रुपैयाँ चाहिँ इक्विलिब्रियम कन्डिसन हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ डिमान्ड र that is called consumer surplus from the economics. Okay. ओ म त 20 रुपैयाँमा चाहिँ म पाउडर किन्न गएको थिएँ, मैले 10 रुपैयाँमा पाएँ. 10 रुपैयाँ नाफा भयो भने द्याट इज नट नाफा. नाफा इज समथिङ डिफरेन्ट. ओके, हामीले चाहिँ अब इकोनोमिक्स स्टुडेन्ट भइसकेर सक्दाखेरि चाहिँ द्याट 10 रुपिसलाई चाहिँ अब त्यो पाउडर किन्न गएको 20 रुपियाँ लिएर गएको 10 रुपियाँ पाएँ भने 10 रुपियाँ चाहिँ मलाई फाइदा भयो. फाइदा चाहिँ होइन त्यो. That is simply the other thing. Faida is like, when you subtract the cost of production from your revenue, then you are going to get some, like profit or something else. That is a little bit different terms, okay? Sunda uste sunincha, tara chai little bit different things are. Let me take you to the next slides now. Okay, sorry. Now, let's see about the producer surplus. Now, we are able to say that, okay, माथिको area चाहिँ consumer surplus रहेछ. त्यस्तै गरेर चाहिँ अब तलको area is now going to be your producer surplus. Now, how can you define that? The area below the equilibrium line, see, downward arrow is shown to you here. सबै arrowले चाहिँ के देखाउँछ? तल जाने है, माथि नजाने, तल जाने भनेको. And area above the supply curve. Now, यसले चाहिँ यता जाने. In first semester also, I hope that you already did the graph of the linear programming. Linear programming पनि यो एरोले चाहिँ कता जा भन्छ. त्यहाँनिर गएर चाहिँ ग्राफिकल एप्रोचबाट चाहिँ लिनियर प्रोग्रामिङको चाहिँ इस्युज, लिनियर क्वेसन्सको चाहिँ सल्भिङ गरौँ. मलाई थाहा छैन तिमीले फर्स्ट सेमेस्टरमा गरे कि गरेन, तर मैले चाहिँ यतापट्टि मैले क्लास लिएको फर्स्ट सेमेस्टरमा चाहिँ मैले सबैलाई चाहिँ लिनियर प्रोग्रामिङको चाहिँ न्युमेरिक एक्सर्साइज सबैतिर गराउँछु. ओके, त्यहाँनिर पनि यस्तै खालको कन्सेप्ट छ. यसले के भनेको छ त, यो लाइनभन्दा तल जाने है, अनि यसले चाहिँ के भनेको छ त, यो लाइनभन्दा माथि जाने. अब जति पनि यो लाइनमा पर्छ त्यो सबै चाहिँ हाम्रो के हो त, प्रोड्युसर सर्कस हो. तर चाहिँ अब मैले सप्लाई कर्भ इज नट नाउ ड्रन हियर फ्रम द ओरिजिन, but chances can happen that, okay, when price is zero, supply is zero, so supply can start from origin. So when supply is starting from origin, then there is again the formation of the next right angle triangle. माथि पनि एउटा right angle triangle बन्यो, तल पनि एउटा right angle triangle बन्यो. So now the right angle triangle below the equilibrium line that is formed or the entire area is your producer surplus. So what is producer surplus then? अघि त हामीले बुझिसक्यो कन्ज्युमर म यति तिर्नको लागि चाहिँ रेडी थिएँ तर म चाहिँ यति तिरे मात्रै मलाई पुग्यो त्यही कमोडिटी दिनको लागि दैट इज योर कन्ज्युमर सर्प्लस. नाउ what is producer surplus? Producer surplus is from the perspective of the producers, obviously. Now, see, it is the differences between the market price of the commodity and the lowest price a producer is willing to accept to produce a good. It is the differences between the amount sellers is paid. How much of amount is paid to the sellers? And how much is the amount that actually sellers is interested to sell his or her product. जस्तै मैले चाहिँ के भयो त जस्तै म चाहिँ 100 रुपैयाँमा म बेच्नको लागि रेडी थिएँ. ओके, तर मलाई चाहिँ इक्विलिब्रियम प्राइसले चाहिँ मलाई त 120 मा पुगाइदियो. भनेपछि हामीले के भयो त दैट इज गेन टु द प्रोड्युसर्स हियर. ओके, टु पुट इट इन भेरी सिम्पल, लेट्स से म चाहिँ कुनै पनि जस्तै एक पोका पाउडर चाहिँ म निकाल्नको लागि चाहिँ म चाहिँ 20 रुपैयाँमा म बेच्नको लागि रेडी थिएँ. मलाई त 20 रुपैयाँ भए पनि मलाई ठिक थियो. मेरो सबै मलाई चाहिँ सबै मेरो सबै खर्च कटाएर चाहिँ मलाई आउँथ्यो त्यहाँनिर चाहिँ. तर मलाई इक्विलिब्रियम कन्डिसनले चाहिँ मार्केटको चाहिँ रुल अफ थम्बले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ अब मैले 20 मा बेच्नको लागि रेडी भएको पाउडर त मैले 30 मा बेच्न पाएँ त. So now in one packet of bread, that seller is or that producer is getting the gain of 10 rupees. That 10 rupees is going to be your producer surplus. That is what your producer surplus is all about. Okay, let me take you to the next graph. On it, I will let the time for you to ask me. Okay. Okay. Now, just take a demand curve point X. Now again, take any point at the S. Now see, at any point S, what is happening? Let's say Y is that point. Now, producer was actually ready to sell that commodity at OP dash. Actually, OP dash based on language ready to you. Market equilibrium condition, that producer is getting OP. See, what the gain by extra benefit, extra gain that the producer is getting is how much? P minus P dash. This area, the differences between P minus P dash is the extra benefit that producer is getting from that market. And this is your producer surplus. Okay, differences between the market price. Okay, simply say that in essence, amount sellers is paid minus sellers actually is interested to sell. This is what our producer surplus is. Now we got to know about the producer surplus, we got to know about the consumer surplus. Now let us put that producer surplus and consumer surplus in one graph. Now let's see. See, Matiko area is going to be your consumer surplus and Tolako area is going to be your producer surplus. And in order to calculate the area for that triangle, in order to calculate the entire area, entire consumer surplus, you have to use the formula of half base into height. And half base into height formula is again used for your producer surplus. And this is also used for the consumer surplus. Now we are understanding, or we have understood about the consumer surplus and the producer surplus. Now let's see about the total surplus. What is that total surplus? Total surplus is nothing but total surplus is the sum total of your consumer surplus and the producer surplus. That is the net welfare to the society. That is the societal benefit, or that is simply called the total surplus. And the formula to calculate the total surplus is CS plus PS. And area to calculate is half base into height, and then we will do the numerical exercises here, and then based on that numerical exercises you will be very much clear. You will be very much clear further. This is all the theoretical information on the producer surplus and the consumer surplus is all about. Now the time is yours. Now I will allow you 2 minutes time, let's say 1 minute or 2 minute times to ask you if you do have any questions further. Yeah. Retail price sorry? Retail price market price body price okay, what happens when when the commodity is being sold at the price above equilibrium was the question, Saugat? Yes, sir. Okay, I have that questions, I have that slides also, but I will come there in a minute, okay? Okay. I have answers to your questions, and then I have that answers in the next slide. I will show that, and I will show that what happens to the consumer surplus when the commodity is being sold above the equilibrium price, and what happens to the producer surplus and what happens to the consumer surplus and what happens to the producer surplus when the commodity is being sold at the price below the equilibrium price. I have that answers. So God, okay, just wait for a few minutes. I am coming there. Okay. Any questions?
Sir,
Yeah.
consumer surplus र producer surplus at the same time हुने चान्स छ कि छैन?
Sorry.
Producer surplus र consumer surplus at the same time एकैपटक हुने चान्स छ कि छैन?
इक्विलिब्रियम मार्केट इक्विलिब्रियम हुँदाखेरि त कन्ज्युमर एन्ड कन्ज्युमर एन्ड प्रोड्युसर सर्भिस त एक्जिस्ट भइरहेको छ। मैले त्यो ग्राफको तिम्रो त्यो एक्सप्लेनेसन पो इन्डिभिजुअली गरेको छ, तर लास्टको यो जुन ग्राफ देखाएको छ कलेक्टिभली त्यो चाहिँ मार्केट इक्विलिब्रियममा हुँदाखेरि कन्ज्युमर सर्भिस र प्रोड्युसर सर्भिस त एक्जिस्टिङ भइरहेको हुन्छ। त्यो त्यो एरियाले देखाइरहेको छ है मित्र।
Yes, sir.
मसँग न्युमेरिकल एक्सरसाइजेस पनि छ, त्यसपछि अझ तिम्रो फर्दर क्लियर हुन्छ है। समवन वाज राइटिङ मी द क्वेसन, अनि यो फेरि च्याट बक्स अन गर्दाखेरि मेरो ल्यापटप ह्याङ भइहाल्छ है फेरि। ओके, प्रोडक्ट सर्भिसको इक्जाम्पल कस्तो हुन्छ मार्केटमा। ओके, अहिले न्युमेरिकल एक्सरसाइजेसबाट आउँछ है। म यसको चाहिँ तिमीहरूको एक्जाम्पल्सहरू पनि आई विल ट्राई माई बेस्ट टु कम अप विथ द्याट। ओके, टोटल सर्प्लसको। ओके, इट इज सिम्पली सुरज नेउपाने, that is simply the summation of your consumer surplus and the producer surplus. अब एक्जाम्पल्सहरू चाहिँ अब I don't know what sort of examples you are looking for, तर चाहिँ मसँग भएको स्लाइड्सको चाहिँ एन्डमा चाहिँ I hope your questions will be clear. तर यदि त्यसबाट पनि क्लियर भएन भने just let me know and then I will try to convince with some other explanations also. Okay, there I might include some extra slides for your questions also. Okay, Suraj? Okay, ठीक छ।
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
So यो producer surplus र consumer surplus चाहिँ एकैचोटि नहुने केस चाहिँ हुन्छ कि हुँदैन?
एकैचोटि नहुने केसेस त अब तिम्रो चाहिँ यस्तो हुन्छ, तिम्रो चाहिँ मार्केट अब त्यहाँ त्यो ग्राफमा चाहिँ इक्विलिब्रियम प्राइसमा चाहिँ तिमीले त्यो इक्विलिब्रियम प्राइसलाई मुभ गर्दै जाऊ तिमीले। अब जस्तै इक्विलिब्रियम प्राइसलाई चाहिँ तिमीले चाहिँ डाउन 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 गर्दै गएर तिमीले चाहिँ होरिजोन्टल एक्सिससँग तिमीले प्यारलल गर्यो भने त्यहाँनिर के हुने भयो तिम्रो, त्यहाँनिर चाहिँ प्रोड्युसर सर्भिस त हराउने भयो। त्यो कन्डिसन हो, आई डोन्ट नो द्याट कन्डिसन इज प्र्याक्टिकल अर नट है। त्यो कन्डिसन चाहिँ जस्तै तिम्रो होरिजोन्टल लाइनसँग ओभरल्याप हुने इक्विलिब्रियम प्राइसको लाइन चाहिँ ओभरल्याप हुन गयो भने त्यहाँनिर चाहिँ तिम्रो चाहिँ प्रोड्युसर सर्भिसको त्यो एरिया त हराउँछ। हामी त्यो ग्राफिकलबाट चाहिँ त्यो बिस्तारै तल तान्यो भने त्यो ग्राफबाट त त्यो भन्छ, थ्योरिटिकली चाहिँ भन्छ, तर चाहिँ प्र्याक्टिकली त्यो एक्जिस्ट हुन्छ कि हुन, त्यसको एन्सर चाहिँ आई डोन्ट ह्याभ इट राइट नाउ हियर। कसले सोधेको क्वेसन?
ओके सर,
है म ग्राफ देखाउँछु नेक्स्ट है।
इक्विलिब्रियम प्राइसमा बेचे पनि हुँदैन होला नि हैन सर?
के भन्यौ सबै?
इक्विलिब्रियम प्राइसमा बेचे पनि सीएस र पीएस नहुने कन्डिसन दुईटै हुँदैन नि हैन सर?
नहुने कन्डिसन इक्विलिब्रियम प्राइसमा तिम्रो कमोडिटी बेच्दाखेरि सीएस र तिम्रो पीएस को एरिया त तिम्रो त्यहाँनिर जहिले पनि एभाइलेबल भइरहेको हुन्छ त है। अब मैले जस्ट के मात्रै भन्न खोजेको भने इक्विलिब्रियम लाइनलाई चाहिँ हामीले तल माथि गर्दाखेरि आई एम कमिङ देयर, त्यहाँदेखि फ्लोर प्राइस र सिलिङ प्राइसको बारेमा कन्सेप्ट वी विल डु देयर। ओके, फ्लोर प्राइस र सिलिङ प्राइस भनेको के हो भनेको आई विल से द्याट, एन्ड देन फ्लोर प्राइस भनेको चाहिँ त्यो इक्विलिब्रियम प्राइसको चाहिँ कहाँ सेट गर्छ, यो सबै गभर्मेन्टले गर्छ। नाउ आई एम स्योर द्याट यु हेभ हर्ड द्याट। ओके, यो वर्ष चाहिँ गभर्मेन्टले धानको मूल्य चाहिँ कम्तीमा चाहिँ 32 रुपियाँ किलो चाहिँ फिक्स गरेको छ भनेर भनेको छ। द्याट इज द मेकानिजम अफ द प्राइस कन्ट्रोल फ्रम द गभर्मेन्ट, एन्ड द्याट इज वाट वी आर गोइङ टु स्टडी हियर। यही टपिकमा चाहिँ वी आर गोइङ टु स्टडी। त्यो भनेको के हो, अनि कहिले काहीँ आउँछ चाहिँ जस्तै म्याक्सिमम सपोर्ट, म्याक्सिमम प्राइस फर द कमोडिटी प्याडी इन द मार्केट इज 40 रुपिस। बढीमा चाहिँ नगर्ने है, बढीको बेसी मूल्य नै यति हो भनेर गभर्मेन्टले फिक्स गरेछ भने वाट इज द्याट 40 रुपिस, वी विल सी द्याट हियर। अनि कम्तीमा प्राइस चाहिँ 32 रुपियाँ फिक्स गरेको त्यो भनेको के हो, वी विल सी द्याट इन दिस टपिक। आई डोन्ट नो वेदर आई विल बी एबल टु डु द्याट हियर टुडे, बट आई विल डु इट डेफिनेटली टुमोरो। Okay. Okay. Now, I want you to do the exercise number 2. Exercise number 2 here, right? This is the very numerical. Your topic I'm sure that I'm the one to fix the questions, or I don't know. I will be mainly focusing in the numerical exercises, right? Implications is the most important thing. Theory part is the key part. Theory part is okay. Implications is more important. Okay? Now, see here. Question number 2. Consider the perfectly competitive market for vegetables. And we know that in a perfectly competitive market, what happens? What is the important criteria for the perfectly competitive market? सबै भनिसकेको छ है। अब यसमा पनि फेरि रिपिटिसन छ, तिम्रो फर्स्ट सेमेस्टरमा पनि पढिसकेको छ अनि यो कोर्समा पनि फेरि रिपिटिसन छ। मार्केटको बारेमा म फेरि पढाउँछु। It's like, okay, imagine that you are in a one market structure that is called perfect competition market, and that is for the vegetables. Now, सबैले गर्ने है यो। अनि मैले एउटा कसैले चाहिँ randomly pick गर्छु अनि उसले चाहिँ आफ्नो भिडियो अन गरेर चाहिँ एक्सप्लेन गर्ने है, प्लिज यति चाहिँ कोअपरेट गर्ने, ओके? Given the aggregate demand for the vegetables is D is equal to 100 minus P. This is the equation given to you, and the supply equation is given to you in the form of S is equal to 3P. And it is saying that calculate the equilibrium price. And equilibrium price भनेको चाहिँ के हो त, यो मार्केट चाहिँ मार्केट इक्विलिब्रियम कन्डिसनमा छ भनेर यसले इन्डिकेसन दिइहाल्यो। When market is in equilibrium, then your demand and supply curve are equal. We know that. So it means that, okay, equation for your D and S will be equal. So it is like D is equal to S, and 100 minus P is equal to 3P, and 4P is equal to 100. So P is equal to 100 minus 4, 100 divided by 4 is 25. So calculate the equilibrium price. So equilibrium price of that market is 25 rupees. Okay. On equilibrium quantity, how can you calculate that? Now replace the value of P with 25. Now do the calculations for demand also and do the calculations for supply also. कति गरी आउँदो रहेछ त? 75 नै आउनुपर्छ दुईटैमा। किन र? किनकि यो चाहिँ मार्केट इक्विलिब्रियम भएपछि डिमान्ड एन्ड सप्लाई इज इक्वल टु इक्वल हुने बित्तिकै त जस्तै माथिको इक्वेसनमा चाहिँ D इज इक्वल टु 100 माइनस 25 गर्दाखेरि 75 आएको जस्तै गरेर तलकोमा चाहिँ S इज इक्वल टु 3 इन्टु 25 गर्दाखेरि 75 आउनै पर्छ। नत्र यदि आएन भने मार्केट इक्विलिब्रियममा छैन भनेर बुझ्नु पर्यो है, यो क्वेशनै रङ हुन्छ। अब based on this information, okay, we are able to calculate the equilibrium price and quantity. Now, at this equilibrium, now your responsibility is to calculate the consumer surplus, producer surplus, and total surplus using the graph. Graph बनाउने, compute the consumer surplus, producer surplus, and total surplus. This is your task for now, and I want this to be explained by, okay, I want this to be explained. Let me, तिमीले गर्दै गर्ने है, म एकजनाको नाम लिन्छु, उसैले एक्सप्लेन गर्छ है। आएन भने पनि don't worry at all. This is how we will learn. Okay. फेरि मैले जसलाई भन्छु फेरि त्यसपछि उसले चाहिँ क्लास नछोड्ने है, फेरि प्राय त्यस्तो भइरहेछ। जसलाई सोध्यो अनि लेफ्ट द मिटिङ भनिरहेको हुन्छ। ओके ल तिलक घरती मगर ल I want this to be volunteered by Tilak Gharti Magar. Tilak, you are in the line or not?
Yes sir.
Okay ल तिमीले एक्सप्लेन गर्ने अनि त्यहाँबाट चाहिँ आफ्नो भिडियो पनि अन गर्ने, त्यसपछि चाहिँ तिमीले एक्सप्लेन गर है। सो एभ्रीवन प्लिज लिसन टु तिलक घरती मगर। तर सबैले गर्ने है, गर्न चाहिँ फेरि सबैले गरे भने चाहिँ इट विल बी क्वाइट इजी फर यु। ल तिलक, टर्न योर भिडियोज एन्ड देन एक्सप्लेन। ल हेर क्वेसन सार्दैछ भन्छ। क्वेसन सार्नै पर्दैन, क्वेसन त म त्यही देखाइरहेको छु, म तिमीलाई स्लाइड दिइहाल्छु पछि।
अच्छा देखिरहेको छु।
ल भन।
अनि हामीले चाहिँ त्यहाँ कन्ज्युमरको पुरिङ प्राइस चाहिँ $1000 गर्दैछ।
क्वेसन नम्बर 2 भन्दैछु मैले, क्वेसन नम्बर 1 होइन।
क्वेसन नम्बर 2 हो।
ल भनेपछि तिमी क्लासमा थिएनौ कि जस्तो लाग्यो हो?
होइन म अघि भर्खर थिएँ, फेरि लाइन गएर बाहिर गएर फेरि आएको थिएँ कि भर्खर।
ल त्यसो भने ल लिभ इट तिलक। ल ओके थ्याङ्क यू। फेरि तिमीलाई फेरि 1-2 मिनेट त्यसै टाइम वेस्ट हुन्छ। नाउ who wants to volunteer that? Okay, ल कसले भलन्टियर गर्छ आफै? ल प्लिज एकजना। कोही छ? एकदम सेल्फ अगाडि आउने है, अनि बल्ल सिकिन्छ अझै। अहिले भन्दाखेरि रङ हुन्छ, अनि रङ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ यु विल गेट अ चान्स टु इम्प्रुभ योर सेल्फ। कोही छ? Anybody is there? कोही त त्यस्तो गऱ्यो भने चाहिँ अनि एकदम अप्ठ्यारो हुन्छ क्या।
सर हजुर
या
सर भिडियो अन गर्नु सर।
को बोल्दैछौ?
म अञ्जन पाठक। हजुर सर भिडियो अन
ल
गर्नु पर्दैन नि सर। मैले
ल
थोरै
ठिक
भन्छु
छ।
सर, जस्तो डिमान्ड इक्वल टु 100 minus P means 3P is equal to 100 minus P because supply is equal to demand
या
according to n equilibrium point. So P value becomes 25.
या
100 minus 100 equal to 4P. That's why P equal to 25 हुन्छ।
ओके या
P सम्म निकाले सर मैले, त्यसपछि बाँकी छ सर। हस्
ल फर्दर त्योभन्दा अरू अगाडि कसले गरेछ एक्सप्लेनेसन्स? ल के भयो? कसैसँग छ यसको?
सिएसपिएस निकाल्नको लागि त इन्टेन्डेड प्राइस टु पे छैन नि होइन रे।
इन्टेन्डेड प्राइस टु पे गर्नै पर्दैन। अहिले त्यस पछाडि मैले अर्को एउटा तिमीलाई फर्मुला दिइसकेँ त। एरिया अफ ट्रायंगल बन्छ, ट्रायंगलको फर्मुला इज हाफ बेस इन्टु हाइट। हाफ बेस इन्टु हाइटको फर्मुला युज गरेर चाहिँ हामीले एरिया एन्टायर एरिया अफ सीएस पीएस निकाल्न सक्छौँ र टीएस पनि निकाल्न सक्छौँ भनेको हो नि त। सो अब फेरि कति तिर्न सकिन्छ भने त्यतातिर नजाने। अब फेरि अब ट्रायंगल बन्छ, ट्रायंगलको फर्मेसन अनुसार चाहिँ नाउ हाफ बेस इन्टु हाइट फर्मुला युज गर्नतिर लाग्ने है। ओके कोही छ? कोही छैन? यत्रो जनामा 100 जनामा एकजना कोही छैन अरू? P equal to 25 निस्क्यो हो। P equal to 25 आइसकेपछि अब you have to find out the quantity demand and quantity supplied also. नाउ के गरिन्छ? अब त्यो P को भ्यालु लगेर चाहिँ तिमीहरुको डिमान्ड इक्वेसनमा लगेर चाहिँ P को भ्यालु इन्सर्ट गर्ने। त्यहाँबाट गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ डिमान्ड कति आउँछ? डिमान्ड इज इक्वल टु 75 आउँछ हो। अनि त्यसपछि क्वान्टिटी पनि कति आउँछ? 75 नै आउनु पर्छ बिकज 3 मल्टिप्लाइड बाइ 25 इज 75। नाउ यो 75 इज द इक्विलिब्रियम क्वान्टिटी। अब यो ग्राफ बनाउनु पर्छ है, ग्राफ बनाइहाल्ने। अनि इक्विलिब्रियम क्वान्टिटीमा चाहिँ 75 कहाँनिर लागेको छ त्यो तिमीहरुले बनाइहाल्ने फेरि त्यहाँनिर। अनि त्यस्तै गरेर त्यसपछिको माथिमा चाहिँ अब तिमीहरुको चाहिँ अब डिमान्ड कर्वमा चाहिँ त्यहाँनिर एउटा सानो ट्रिक लगाउन पर्छ। हाफ बेस इन्टु हाइट फर्मुला लाउनको लागि चाहिँ माथिको सीएस इज इक्वल टु चाहिँ कन्ज्युमर सरप्लसको चाहिँ तिमीहरुले एरिया निकाल्नको लागि चाहिँ यु नीड टु युज हाफ बेस इन्टु हाइट एन्ड हाफ बेस इन्टु हाइट बेस भनेको कति हुने भयो? हु क्यान से 1/2 इज 1/2 एन्ड बेस इज हाउ मच इज बेस डियर? Sorry, no, that is not your base. Your base is 75. Your base is 75 because तलको चाहिँ तिमीहरुको चाहिँ एउटा ज्योमेट्रिकल सेन्समा चाहिँ तल रेक्टेंगल बन्यो। अब तल रेक्टेंगल बनेपछि रेक्टेंगलको प्रोपर्टी चाहिँ के हुन्छ? द अपोजिट साइड्स अफ द रेक्टेंगल आर अलवेज इक्वल। सो तलको 75 सम्मको चाहिँ जुन लाइन छ त्यसको चाहिँ ठ्याक्कै माथिपट्टिको पनि त्यसको सेम त्यो प्रोपर्टिजले गर्दाखेरि माथिको पनि इक्विलिब्रियम लाइन जुन छ that line will also now be 75 and that is your base. Okay, so your base is 75. यसरी 75 आयो। अब यहाँ चाहिँ रेक्टेंगलको प्रोपर्टिज के हो, स्क्वायरको प्रोपर्टिज के हो, एरिया अफ ट्रायंगल कसरी निकाल्ने भनेको सबै थाहा हुनु पर्छ यहाँनिर चाहिँ। ओके, अनि त्यस्तै गरेर चाहिँ नाउ व्हाट इज द हाइट? हु क्यान से व्हाट इज द हाइट? height of the triangle when you are calculating the consumer surplus. Who can say?
25, sir.
No, 25 is not your height.
50, sir.
How much?
50.
No, 50 is also not your height.
Yes, sir.
75 exactly, Ruchita. The answer from the Ruchita is 75, and that is your height. Ruchita, now please unmute yourself and then explain how did you get that 75. Okay, that is absolutely right, Ruchita. Now unmute yourself. Yeah, go on.
Hello, audible?
Little bit, अलिकति बेसी बोल्नु त, अलिकति सानो सुनियो। Okay, yeah, it's fine. Okay, yeah.
I don't know how to explain.
Just explain how can you do that, okay?
So from the equation, T equals to 1 minus P and S equals to 3P.
Yeah.
in the market equilibrium, we know that D is equals to S. So solving that, we get the value of P equals to 25. And we know that P means price.
Yeah.
So if so after substituting the value of P in both equations, D and S, we get demand D equals to 75 and S equals to 75.
Exactly.
For
Yeah.
drawing graph, I use the math technique.
Yeah.
In equation 1, where D is equals to 100 minus P, I put the value of P equals to 0. Then I get the
Okay.
value of D is equals to 100.
Yeah.
The value of D equals to 100, I get the value of P equals to 100.
Exactly. This is
Point,
how we do.
I I got the 2 points. So we know that to draw a straight line, we need 2 points. So I got the demand curve.
Yeah.
As S equals to 3P, I put the value. Uh, I think I've mistaken the surplus for the surplus point. We know that the equilibrium price is 25
Yeah.
as from the equation. So
Okay.
equilibrium point has the value 25 for price.
Yeah.
When we draw a straight line to the vertical axis,
Yeah.
P is equals to 25 in the vertical axis.
Yeah.
As from the demand curve crosses vertical axis at 100.
Yeah.
So from 25 to 100, we get the value 75. That is the height of the triangle. And from the perpendicular line touching the horizontal axis,
Yeah.
we got the quantity equals to 75. So base is equals to 75.
Exactly. This is how we calculate. Thank you, Ruchita. Your explanation is wonderful. Okay, this is how we do our calculations of consumer surplus and the producer surplus. And then in order to calculate the consumer surplus and producer surplus, you need to have a little bit prior information or the prior knowledge of the mathematics also here. So, for instance, when you are given the equation x minus y is equal to 10, let us assume. Okay, and if you want to calculate the values of x and y from only, and if you are given only one equation, and then if the question is asking you to say, okay, find out the values of x and y, then you cannot say, okay, it is impossible to calculate. It is possible. But how is that possible? It is possible when you assume first, let x be 0. When x is 0, then what is the value of y in the equation? That is your coordinates. And in the second point, now assume again y is equal to 0. And then when you do the y is equal to 0, then what is the value of x? This is how we can also calculate the value of x and y, or the values of two alphabets in the equation when only one equation is given. When two equations are given, then there is no any issues. Okay, when we replace the value of x, okay, then we behave in that way. So when only one equation is given, then this is how we do. This is how just Ruchita explained. That is how we do. In the demand equation, what we do, 100 minus P is like, okay, what was the equation here? Let me, okay, it's like 100 minus P. Okay, 100 minus P. Now, if you want to know the maximum value of D, then what you need to assume? You need to assume that price is 0. Let the price be 0. When the price is 0, then D is equal to 100. So this is the maximum demand that your question is allowing you to. So now, what is the supply then? Well, assume P is equal to 0, the supply will be 0. So now, based on this information, you will be able to figure out the graph, and then the graph is like, okay, D is equal to 100 above, and from the height of that CS, or the height of that right angle triangle above your equilibrium line, it's like 100, and down equilibrium price is 25, which we have already calculated. Now the differences between 100 and 25 is your 75. That is your height, and base is your 75, because this is forming the rectangle, and the rectangle opposite sides are always equal, and the base is like, in the horizontal axis there is 75. So that 75 is taking the value of that 75 is taken to the value of the equilibrium line, and we say that equilibrium line base is 25, sorry, 75. And when we use the formula to calculate the entire area of the consumer surplus, this is done by half base into height. 1 by 2 multiplied by base means 75, and height means 75. 75 multiplied by 75 divided by 2 will give you 2800 and something else. That is your formula to calculate the consumer surplus. Similarly, the formula to calculate the producer surplus is also same. But here, in order to calculate the producer surplus, it is very easy because you don't need to do some tricks here, because the equilibrium price is given only to you 25, so your height of the triangle is 25 simply. Okay, and base is again going to be your 75 here. So base means, what is the base? Now you have to understand which one is the base. Base is like, the triangle is resting on which sides is simply known to be the base. That is the base. And height simply. Okay, and this is how we can calculate. Okay, half base into height. Half base into height means 1 by 2 multiplied by 75 multiplied by 25 will give you producer surplus, and your total surplus is the sum total of your consumer surplus and the producer surplus, which we will get when we add the values of our consumer surplus and the producer surplus. So if this sort of questions is coming in your examinations, be sure and be confirmed that okay, you have to draw the graph anyhow. When you draw this graph, then it will be very easy for you to explain. Okay, and then you will be deserving to get 4 out of 4. Okay, any questions? Any questions up to here? Anyone? Please buzz me, okay? If you don't have any questions at all, then I will stop it here for today. It's now 12:13 already, 13 past 12. So the time allocated was like, yeah.
Sorry, actually,